Mike Casey's laughing and the show is just beginning. Hello everybody, welcome to This Week in Cleantech. We're doing the intro a little more quiet today because my infallible wife says I'm extremely loud when we start the show and it gets overmodulated, so I'm sorry for every other episode before this, but from today onward, we're going to do it right on This Week in Cleantech. It's a roundup of this week's biggest stories you need to know about in climate and clean energy. We do it in 15 minutes or less. Today is Friday, April 18th, 2025. We got a guest on the line. His name is Jake Spring from the Washington Post. He told us, Mike Casey, he's at the post office. You get that? The post office?
Da-dunk.
I'm Factor This content director, Paul Gerke, joined by Cleantech commentator extraordinaire Mike Casey of Tigercomm. Mike, how are we doing on this fine Friday?
My friend, I'm back from the ACP's Siting and Permitting Conference in Seattle. Big attendance, beautiful weather. Our VP for Community Engagement, Ayelet Hines, crushed it on stage. And I, however, will get no credit from our listeners and viewers for being ready to tape the show yesterday. Despite taking the red eye back from the West Coast, I was ready to roll with my friend Paul Gerke, even though I was holding my eyes open with toothpicks. Shout out to new listener, Samara Watkis. She's the head of design at Neurogrid, and Benjamin Metcalf, the owner of Noose Enterprises.
You are spreading the gospel one by one on these trips, Mike.
I am. You know, I think I should be getting a commission for bringing in all these listeners. You and Engel, I don't know what you guys have been doing. Like, I'm the one who brings the star power to the show. So I'm just saying, dude.
Have you ever asked a musical artist how much money they get paid when someone listens to their songs? Mike, I'll let you in on the cut, but we'll literally be rubbing pennies together, brother. We do want to give a shout out to the listeners, though. You guys are the ones that make this worth it. You're getting something out of these episodes, so you're giving us something in return. We want to shout out someone special. There was no name associated with this, Mike Casey, but it was some fan mail that was submitted through Buzzsprout. The IP pinged somewhere in the UK or Northern Ireland. So, like, it's just a little gesture when you send something like that, but, like, my bosses saw that, and they were stoked about it. So, like, that anonymous listener that was just like, hey, great job on the show, like, you probably just gave my career a like, intangible boost just by drawing attention to the fact that this show doesn't completely suck. So, I don't know who you are, UK or Northern Ireland listener, but hell yeah, appreciate that. And if you want to be part of the show, you can nominate stories. Just email me, paul.gerke@clarionevents.com. All right, Mike, we do have a show to do. Top story on this Friday. What are we covering?
This Week in Cleantech, guest Katie Brigham from Heatmap. This massive hydrogen project could hurt the climate more than it helps, Paul Gerke.
I don't know if it's just me, but Heatmap has been crushing it lately. I've just been noticing a ton of great journalism coming out of that outlet. It just shows up in my inbox every day. I'm like, this is another Heatmap story? Are you kidding me? Air Products, the world's largest hydrogen producer, if you're unfamiliar, could earn up to $440 million annually in clean energy tax credits from a $7 billion Louisiana complex that's set to open in a few years, 2028. There's a bit of an ongoing debate, Mike, that I know you've taken sides in somewhere. I'm sure you're going to dig in just a second about blue hydrogen, whether it's part of a clean hydrogen future, a bridge to get there, or if there are minimal climate benefits that are maybe drawing our attention away from some better solutions. A new report is criticizing Air Products' assumptions on methane leaks and carbon capture efficiency, warning that Louisiana facility could deliver no environmental benefit despite billions of dollars in subsidies. The DOE assumes the plant will leak very little methane and capture almost all of its carbon. If we're talking about those numbers not being realistic, this project might barely cut pollution or in some ways make it worse. Mike, your thoughts?
I said, first, I think it's worth stating what blue hydrogen is.
Yes, please do.
It is not what happens 20 miles after you eat Taco Bell when it's the only food at the highway rest stop at 2 a.m. outside of Baton Rouge. So no, blue hydrogen is the hydrogen you get by using fracked gas, but you store the resulting carbon pollution underground. So lawmakers are currently weighing which IRA tax credits to keep, and blue hydrogen's boondoggle might cause less support. Authors of the report wanted to figure out if the project would cut pollution compared to what would happen if the project didn't exist. Air Products hasn't said what kind of energy it would replace, dirty or clean. Authors used a rough estimate from the White House that hydrogen could replace some of the dirtier fuels and cut carbon. And one expert says blue hydrogen is a good way. It's a good thing if it replaces gray hydrogen, which is made from frack gas, and no carbon capture. Others say pollution leaking from methane and energy needed to capture the carbon might cancel out the benefits. Paul Gerke, number 2.
Story number 2, Justine Kalma from The Verge, titled Google's Geothermal Energy Ambitions Are Growing. Another week, another story about geothermal and its potential. Mike, what did you take out of this one?
We are covering the heck out of next-gen geothermal, my
We
friend.
love warm stuff in the ground. That's just something, a drum I've been beating for years.
Google, it's agreed to its first geothermal energy deal with developer Baseload Capital for its Asia facilities. It marks the first geothermal purchase agreement in Taiwan. The deal will add 10 megawatts of energy to Taiwan's grid by 2029. It will double Taiwan's current commercial geothermal capacity. Mr. Gerke.
So, Mr. Casey, I cover renewable energy as part of my job. I don't know if you knew that. I write about it sometimes. I'm just kidding. We actually featured one of the stories on the show last week, for which I am grateful. We talk a lot about Fervo Energy in our space as being the pioneers down in Texas working on this geothermal stuff, incorporating these new age fracking technologies. We didn't mention it, but Fervo actually scored its first PPA this past week with Shell Energy. So that lends some legitimacy on a whole nother level, in my opinion. I think it was a little over 30 megawatts. But Google also partnering with Fervo, looking to expand those geothermal solutions. Supposedly, we can do it in a lot more places than we once thought. Google looking at other deals in Indonesia, in Japan. This might be one of those winners, Mike. You know, we talk about should we be looking at this solution or that solution or try this or try that. And with that, you're going to get a lot of stinkers. Geothermal, next gen geothermal doesn't look to be a stinker from my perch. Just, on this date, April 18th, 2025.
I
Mike,
agree.
story number 3.
Matilda Hay from Grist. New technologies are helping to regrow Arctic sea ice. This is a kind of a cool story. And Paul Gerke, I'm going to go full dork on you. I'm actually reading a book
Ooh.
about ice. I'm not kidding you. It's this thick. It's all about ice, and it's really quite good. It's by Mariana Gosnell. So
You're talking about frozen water, not the folks picking up people and sending them to other countries right now, right? The frozen water ice. I just want to make that clear because not everyone that's watching could see that there was a picture of a glacier in that. They're listening. Just so we're clear, this is about ice, like the thing that hurt the Titanic ice.
yes,
Sensitive times right now, Mike. I
Move
want to
on.
make sure we didn't step in one.
Friend, come back to the light. Come back to the story.
Let's
Come back to
so
the story.
listen. Okay. So let's do talk about ice because I'm sure you're in the 7th chapter. I'm sure there's more in that book than we could ever touch in this podcast. And this is one of those you're going to have to believe what they tell you stories, Mike, because you and I aren't getting out there to the Arctic to check this stuff out. They could tell us that Barney the dinosaur is piloting one of these things, and I would just have to believe him. Arctic temperatures have risen nearly 4 times faster than anywhere else on Earth since 1979. Ice-free Arctic summer day could happen for the first time as early as 2030. That is just around the corner. Researchers from UK nonprofit Real Ice are testing a hydrogen-powered pump in the Arctic to thicken sea ice. What it does is it sucks up seawater from below, puts it onto the sea ice surface, which floods the area with a thin layer that freezes overnight. Think about like Zambonis, Mike. You watch a hockey game, the way they resurface the ice during intermission. Pumping about 10 inches of that seawater above the ice will cause it to thicken 20 inches or more underneath because it sort of removes a layer of insulating snow and thickens all the way down. Future plans include autonomous underwater drones to expand operations. Mike, you're smiling and nodding. Are you familiar with this space? You're like, hey, I'm into this.
I'm not, but I got to say, I used to be a skeptic about geoengineering, but I think we're so late in the planetary hour that you have to give people credit for trying
Yeah.
stuff like this. I think this is not something that, if it fails with huge environmental downsides, and I think they're giving it a shot. So the problems with the technology are the scientific uncertainties. Will thicker ice last longer? Will adding salt water cause faster melting? I do know from this book I'm reading that seawater does freeze, it just freezes at lower temperatures. There's also potential ecological disruptions, the noise effects on marine mammals and their behavior and under ice ecosystems. That's a real thing. The estimated cost is a little bit of a deterrent. It's $5,000 per pump, with 500,000 pumps needed to rethicken 10% of Arctic sea ice. So you can do the numbers there. Suggestions for funding include global climate funds or cooling credits, which are difficult to have and have a lot of rigor in them. So those are both controversial. Paul, our fourth story.
Story number 4, Bianca Giacobone on Latitude Media, entitled Bringing Back Evaporative Cooling for Data Centers. Mike, are we talking about what they're doing on Tatooine? Some dew farmers out there? Is that what we're... That's
Do you know
a,
that there's a significant number of our listeners who really weren't born when
when Star Wars
Star
came
Wars?
out?
I'm just
The
doing.
OG Star Wars?
I'm just letting you know. Data centers, they use up a lot of water for cooling. It keeps servers and other equipment from overheating. An AirJoule found a more efficient way to extract the water, and it's from the air. The water is then used to enhance evaporative cooling. AirJoule's tech uses less than 160 watt hours per liter of water, whereas conventional AC systems use 400 to 1,300 watt hours per liter. That allows data centers to shift back to evaporative cooling, 75% more energy efficient than traditional vapor compression cooling. Mr. Gerke, your thoughts, sir?
I love when we talk about cool tech on the show, and this is a nice little run of it here. So there's two big problems with data centers that you know. One, they use a lot of energy just for operations, but two, they use a lot of energy just to keep them cool, so they don't
Yeah.
just light up on fire. So this sort of solves two big problems that data centers face right now. One, it reduces the energy consumption necessary for cooling, but it also provides a sustainable on-site water source in water-stressed industry. AirJoule's tech is being incorporated into some commercial AC systems. I think this is interesting, Mike. It's sort of like what some companies are doing, co-locating data centers with wind operations.
Yeah.
The literal gusts of the wind turbines are keeping the data centers cooler just by nature, and then you can tap into the, although intermittent, renewable energy. It's sort of like an ecosystem that sort of works well together.
Yeah, my buddy John Bell is there at Soluna Computing. He puts data centers that can handle interruptible computing jobs like Bitcoin mining. He puts them right next to renewable energy farms.
Do you know I wrote a story about Soluna last week about their Project Rosa?
Badass.
Well,
Nice.
what do you know? That's on the website. Go check it out. Factor this. Nice little unintentional plug
And
for
I
us.
want you to know, my friend, I noticed the double entendre where you're talking about cool tech when we're talking about evaporative cooling. That was slick.
Sometimes, thank
That
you.
was slick.
Sometimes it just comes together easy for me, Mike. What can I say?
All right. Our last story is by Jake Spring, our first timer on This Week in Clean Tech. He's from the Washington Post. We've had other posties on, but we're having Jake, who's calling us from an undisclosed location somewhere in the Washington Post building. Trump administration halts New York offshore wind project. It's the latest act of corporate welfare on behalf of the 200-year-old fossil fuel industry. That last part was my commentary, not Jake's, who's a straight-on news reporter. Jake Spring, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Paul. Good to be
All right.
on.
All right. So if people have not read this awesome story, which we absolutely want them to do, what is the big takeaway?
The big takeaway is Trump hates wind. That's long been known. And we thought he would leave projects alone if they were already under construction. There was a short list of them. And it turns out he won't. He's gone after them.
Jake, go ahead. Sorry.
No. It's most in the industry had thought, perhaps naively, that if it's under construction, if billions have been spent, it would be safe, and it is not. They have paused it, or they're reviewing it, saying that there's some evidence that the approvals were rushed. They have not cited any details of what that rush might have been.
Jake, it seems to me like this is one of many tests of ultimate authority for Trump, where if you can shut down Equinor's Empire Wind 1, which is set to deliver first power next year, that has steel in the ground, that has a PPA with NYSERDA, if you can stop that project, the whole industry is up for grabs. Like all $80 billion or whatever, every project that's in construction might as well pack it up. Is that your assessment here? That if he wins this battle against Equinor and Empire One, that it means hell and high water for offshore wind in the U.S.?
It may well. I mean, you look, I spoke to Congressman Van Drew of New Jersey, who helped write an original day one Trump executive order about what Trump's intent was here. And he said, they're all going to stop. He was very clear in that. And, when I wrote that, it was unclear who we should believe, but it seems like he's onto something. He might be right about that.
Jake, I I don't want to point out unclothed emperors here, but I keep being struck by the fact that to the point that to the extent that there was a Trump campaign platform, it was a little bit more of an etch-a-sketch than cohesion, but it was the border, inflation, and DEI. But you guys reported back in October that there was a man-whining session down in Mar-a-Lago with Harold Hamm, all begging for treatment because, of course, when you're producing more oil and gas than anyone has in the history of the world, you need extra government help. And it looks like if you look at what's happening in Texas with the Texas legislature, if you're looking at what happened at the federal level, I mean, it just seems like you can't call it any other way than this is a bunch of policymakers interfering in the free market by putting their thumb on the scale very much in favor of traditional energy sources and doing everything possible to tank the new stuff. Is there anything in your reporting that suggests that's not the case? I'm not trying to lead the witness here, but I think maybe I'm a dummy or this is just painfully obvious. It could be both.
I mean, it's been a mixed bag for traditional energy too, right? I mean, look at the tariffs, look at the oil price. We've been hearing, oil companies aren't super happy with the price going way down. But I mean, at least outwardly, they purport, to be in all the above administration. That's at least the way they're talking about it. Yeah, I mean, I guess time will tell. Solar, has been less in the crosshairs. Onshore wind, we haven't heard much about. It's still unclear to me where things will go with that.
Yeah, I disagree with those assertions, Jake. I've seen, I mean, Lava Ridge was the first one to get killed right out of the gate with all the legislators in Idaho beating that drum for years and years and years. We've seen a bunch of solar projects, just another huge one in Ohio get pulled this past week. I think it's just not making news because of the amount of major BS that's happening on a week-to-week basis. I think under our noses, a lot of these solar and onshore wind projects are also getting scuttled. And I just worry about what NYSERDA does with that power. That's a ton of power that they're planning on having. Like to me, this just is so hypocritical when you're beating the drum of energy dominance and the need for everyone knows we need as many electrons as we can get, but to just try to scuttle projects that are ready to produce not just power but renewable energy. It's mind blowing to me, Jake. Any other sentiments you want to share with your piece or for our listeners?
No, just that, offshore wind especially holds a special place in Trump's heart. It goes back to, you can watch him in 2012 speaking to some sort of Scottish government board about, why he opposes wind. And so, he maybe has personal views on offshore wind that make it a little bit his view on it different than some other renewables. But you may well be right. I've heard about Lava Ridge. It's just, these things haven't been making as much noise.
Well, Paul Gerke, we are just about out of time. We need to go to our Cleantecher of the week.
Jake, really appreciate your time. Cleantecher of the week, why do you give me the tricky names? Andrea Giampoli and Alyssa Edwards. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Chairs of the sold-out ACP Siting and Permitting Conference in Seattle this week. Mike, you were at that conference and you made me say the tricky names? You, sir.
Are you anti-Italian?
No, not at all. I have an Italian wife. I'm married to Corrado.
This is the second Italian surname you're complaining about having to produce.
Giampoli?
Yes.
But I nailed it, right? So
you did. You totally nailed it. And Alyssa Edwards, she's a buddy of ours from Lightsource BP. Yep. She's a badass there. They did a great conference. And I want to give a shout out to our terrific producer, Brian Mendez, who always, you haven't even noticed that, Paul? Right before we come on, Brian he always lets out that cackling laugh that gets us laughing. And then I think he sets us up so we make ourselves look like goofs when we
first sounds right.
The show. And Alex Peterson, Clearin, for helping us identify this week's top stories.
And to every single listener who made it this far, appreciate your patience, especially that of Jake Spring for joining us on This Week in Clean Tech. Subscribe, give us feedback, share story suggestions, do whatever you want. It's a fun space. Read the articles we discussed this week. If you're reading this on Factor This, they are in the links, probably below, actually, this direction. Either way, we'll see you next week on This Week in Clean Tech.
Jake's going to run back and tell Jeff Bezos and never have any of us have any of he's on this show again. It's like
Bezos is out busting people out of space capsules. Didn't you see that? He's bringing Katy Perry back to Earth. He's busy.
All right, Jake Spring, thanks for coming on. First time. Hope to have you back. We will. I don't want to make promises we can't keep. We'll try to be better behaved the next time you're on. And thank you. Great reporting. Take
Thanks
care.
a lot,
We'll see
guys.
you next week.